Nihility, the path of nothingness. The fear of all memo keepers and what many believe is the strongest path. Led by the Aeon that is quite literally a black hole and couldn't care less about what any of us think. Because according to its philosophy, it won't matter anyway. Because it is the all-consuming void that descends upon worlds leaving no trace as if they never existed at all. A type of disintegration so complete that not even memories are left behind. So what is it doing on Amphoreus? Why does Acheron, the emanator of this specific path, make an appearance? Well, as I've said in a previous video, this makes so much sense, and this is the question that I am aiming to answer today. And no, it's not because she got lost. Because I believe this appearance teaches us a lot more about Amphoreus, and perhaps shines a light on yet another lie we've been told. Because Honkai Star Rail is a game where misinformation is canon to the point where there is an entire path dedicated to it. And it is our job to decipher the truth of these matters. Or as the late professor would say, decipher the truth of this world. Because this is Acheron's role in Amphoreus revealed. Okay. So let's start off with what we know happened to our Trailblazer, because in order for everything else to make sense, we gotta talk about this. Because this alone was confusing enough. And in truth, we didn't survive the crash landing at the very beginning. Danheng did, but we didn't. But since Amphoreus is a land of memories, we persisted as what was basically a mimetic entity without knowing that we had died at all. However, we were going to dissipate eventually until Fu Li happened to gaze upon us and stabilize our form, which makes sense because Fu Li is the one responsible for transforming human memo keepers into mimetic entities. So this Aeon of all Aeons would see a mimetic entity in trouble and jump in to save them or stabilize their form for a time. Which is kind of funny because it is very possible that Fu Li just mistook us for one of their many memo keepers. But either way, at the time, we didn't know why this was, so we just continued as if nothing happened. However, things got confusing when we happened to brush against Castorus and not die because of the whole death touch deal. And through this, the truth was revealed. So long story short, y'all know the deal. Castorus became the demigod of death and rebirth and was able to send us back to the land of the living before our soul dissipated. And as we were making our journey back, despite being told not to look back, our Trailblazer considers doing so, to which none other than Raiden Bossen Mori Mei shows up and tells us exactly how to proceed using her red text. So we know this is her. Not just a memory of her encouraging us like the others. So now that we're all on the same page, let's tackle why and how exactly she's here. Because this is where things get spicy. Well, I didn't just give my flowery worded intro for nothing. Because in going from death to life, we passed through nihility. Let me explain. Because if you are uninitiated with the Honkai games, death is the end, but what follows the end is finality, which is a new beginning. These two concepts chase each other, meet momentarily, and then part again. Kinda like how Kiana and Mei are always separated, then they reunite, then separate again. Kiana is finality and Mei is origin, of course. Origin being the end. Because every new beginning meets its end, then that end reignites again. And as we, the Trailblazer, already met our end, Castorus brought us back to life, but she couldn't be our guide. So we had to travel through a space that wasn't the end or the new beginning. And that space is nihility. Because as we know, the entire reason why Acheron became the emanator of nihility is because her world came to an end with no possible new beginning. It was eaten by a black hole. And what exactly is an end with no new beginning? Nothingness, the void, null space, nihility. This is why Castorus told us not to look back. Because 1, there wasn't anything to look back to, and 2, we would be looking into the void. And as we've seen from the members of Device IX, if you look into the void, you get lost in it and are unable to bring yourself back. You get stuck between the plane of existence and not existing at all. So as we turn and nearly lose ourselves again, Acheron shows up to save us, because this is her domain. She may get lost everywhere else, but if there's anything she knows how to navigate, it's the void. On the still waters of oblivion, she guides the wandering souls. And in this moment, we were a wandering soul. So like I said before, doesn't this make so much sense? Life and death are two different things, and between them is nothingness. Which, on a side note, is so Chinese. Because to my knowledge, there is no direct translation for the English word dying in Chinese. You are either dead or alive. There is a word for soon to die or near death, but not exactly for the word dying, as in your soul is leaving your body and you are momentarily between life and death. 中国朋友们, correct me if I'm wrong, but when I was studying, that's what my teacher told me, and I always found it strange. Anyway, linguistics aside, this is exactly why Acheron showed up and why it makes so much sense. However, this reveals something even bigger, because we were lied to big time. Because the remembrance, erudition, and destruction are not the only paths involved with Amphoreus. The Nihility's reach extending to this place proves this all false. And the massive amount of misinformation we keep getting is pointing straight at Mythos from the Enigmata. We also were very wrong in thinking that the people of Amphoreus were entirely ignorant of the path system, because Orynyx referred to Fu Li as the Sky Father and called us a Pathstrider of the Remembrance, which for one thing makes perfect sense, because Orynyx is the titan that safeguards memories to stop them from being lost in oblivion. The exact job of the Memo Keepers. Remember, Nihility is the only path that can delete memories, meaning that Orynyx is at least acutely aware of the Nihility and is entirely aware of the Remembrance, which confirms further that this three paths Amphoreus thing is a huge lie, and the Garden of Recollection isn't the only way to access this place, because Acheron, if she wanted to, could have just followed us out. She knew the way. She guided us. She knew exactly how to give us directions of how to get out, which also explains how Polka Kakamon was able to infiltrate her to space station undetected. Remember the Polka Kakamon video? The ability to navigate the void allows you to access any place in existence no matter what realm it is in. That is an insane power. But this also raises more questions. If most of what we were told about Amphoreus is a lie, do we know anything about this world? Where has Black Swan taken us? This world is backwards, upside down, and inside out. It is so messed up that time doesn't even pass correctly. Which brings me to my next point. Black Swan sends Fu Li casting their gaze on us days or even weeks after it actually happened. Why is she so late? Are the events on Amphoreus and the Express not synced? Or is time itself distorted in this world? Oh, Orynyx died. So for at least 15 entry hours, there was nothing maintaining time. Oh, that's bad. That's really bad. But as for now, we might be good because we passed the trial. I'm not sure. But going back to Orynyx here, how, as a former human of Amphoreus, does Orynyx know about the path system? Were they able to go to other worlds back then? Was the past Sky Titan not a tyrant that shot down anyone that made a spaceship? Or was the Sky Titan cool and then the Lord Ravager showed up and did something scary and then Sky Titan was like, nope, you guys aren't going there, it's scary up there? I don't know anymore. Recently, I've been entertaining the thought that maybe Aquila is trying to protect their people in a very harsh way. Still, I have so many questions, but just in case Acheron showing up in Amphoreus was one of your questions, this is Acheron's role in Amphoreus revealed. So now we've got Herta on Amphoreus, interested in Amphoreus, so she's not going anywhere, and Acheron has constant access to Amphoreus, so she's basically on deck. This final showdown with the Lord Ravager is going to be absolutely insane. Sorry, I started yapping towards the end there, but I just have so many questions and suspicions now. And every time we get one thing answered, it just opens up the floodgates in terms of questions for me. I don't know about you guys, but misinformation and lies being very much a part of this story is so funny to me. Only Honkai Star Rail would do this. This story is so unique. Even if you hate it by any chance, you gotta admit that this is something different. Amphoreus is an experience. When Black Swan was talking about mirrors, she must have meant funhouse mirrors, because getting lost is apparently part of the journey. But what do you guys think? Be sure to let me know, and I'll see you all in the next video. Peace, yo.